All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, just like it was last year in the Mountain West Championship game, as well as earlier this season, UNLV once again got turned away from victory courtesy of Boise State, as the Broncos have basically dominated this rivalry, if you will, with both of these teams in the Mountain West. Now, last year's Mountain West Championship game, as well as the meeting earlier this season between Boise State and UNLV, took place in the climate controlled confines of Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. But last night, the Rebels had to go on the road and they had to deal with the cold and the elements in Boise. And when it was all said and done, the Rebels were once again stymied, courtesy of the Broncos. Now, I said going into this game that UNLV needed a fast start, and they did not get it as the cold affected them early on, in my opinion. We saw the fast start for Boise State, which included quarterback Maddox Matson hooking up with Latrell Coples on a first quarter touchdown to give the Broncos the 7-0 advantage. But nonetheless, early on, this Boise State defense, I mean, they just really pinned their ears back and came after UNLV quarterback Hodge Malik Williams. On the night, he was sacked six times. He was just 13 of 28 passing for a buck 10, zero touchdown passes and a pick. And then on top of that, he just like early on this offense, this team, this UNLV team simply did not have a rhythm. Hodge Malik Williams was missing some throws. I think the cold as well as the pressure that he was facing from the Broncos, the whole defense, because like they were just bringing house at him at times. Okay, it just kept him and the timing of this offense off balance. Six sacks last night for Boise State on Hodge Malik Williams, and honestly, it seemed like more because again, like I said before, there were points of this game where he was really just running for his life. The second quarter saw the phenomenal running back Ashton Jeanty get it going. And then to me, I think the touchdown that he broke, the 80-yard run, the 75-yard run, excuse me, just before the end of the first half, I really think I'm not going to say it completely broke the spirit of UNLV because they were still very competitive in the second half of this contest. But nonetheless, it put them in a tough spot because why? Being down three touchdowns at the half on the road, it makes you one dimensional. Okay. And that's the thing, getting back to Ashton Jeanty. He's a guy, he's a phenomenal player. He's a home run hitter at the running back position. And you would hope, okay, that with the resurgence of running backs this year in the National Football League, that somebody at the next level will take a hard look at potentially drafting this kid in round number one. That is how good that he is. But nonetheless, you look at UNLV's defense last night and you look at the play of Ashton Jeanty, who once again finished with more than 200 yards on the ground. You had a scenario where the Rebels' game plan was to go out there and stop Ashton Jeanty, and they simply couldn't get it done. I mean, you had situations where even on the play fakes to Jeanty, everybody was biting defensively for UNLV. Okay, that's the focus that they had on trying to slow this young man down. And at the end of the day, they simply could not do it. And I think that's a credit to Boise State and their entire coaching staff offensively. Why? Because it's one of those where it would be easy to go away from the run game, but this team is predicated by Ashton Jeanty. And if you're going to stop him early, they're going to keep using him. They're going to keep giving him the ball. He's going to keep leaning on you. And eventually those 2 or 3 yard runs are going to be 6 and 7 yard runs. Those 6 or 7 yard runs are going to turn into 15-yard runs. And then the floodgates open up. And that is what happened to UNLV in this contest last night. But nonetheless, they were down 21-0 at the half. And it would have been very easy for the Rebels to simply give up. But credit to Barry Odom. This is a darn good team that he has in Vegas with the Rebels. They fought, they scrapped, and they clawed. They got back in to make it 21-7. But the problem was So many missed opportunities for UNLV, a missed field goal, multiple trips to the red zone that did not result in any points. And you look at UNLV last night in the second half, they had a couple of first and goal to goal situations clearly inside of the 10-yard line. What happened? Penalties on the very first play, putting them back, throwing off the timing of those drives. And of course, the rest was history. Like I said before, the elements, in my opinion, did affect UNLV. It took them to the second half to really get this thing going. And at that point, again, it was just too little too late because you can't spot a good team like Boise State, a 3 touchdown lead on their field, and expect to come back and win. Very tough situation for UNLV last night. Eiley Smith, I hope I'm pronouncing that first name right. Please forgive me if I didn't. Please feel free to correct me if I didn't in the chat box as well. You're saying Ashton has more yards after contact than Hunter has as his total yards by about double. If Ashton doesn't win the Heisman, the system is broken. Boise State has played multiple top 10 runs, meaning top 10 run defenses, I assume. Defense is the season, and UNLV was one of them. Well, I'll tell you like this. I said this during the week, and I will say it again now. The fact that Ashton Jeanty uh, played in a conference championship game and Travis Hunter did not really works to his favor. I also think you look at the time slot of this game. It was a prime time slot on Friday night, and I feel like more people paid attention to the Mountain West Championship game than the American Athletic Conference Championship game last night. And that's no disrespect to the American because we knew that the winner of last night's game was going to get a bid to the college football playoff. You had two ranked teams facing off. You had a Heisman Trophy finalist in Ashton Jeanty all on center stage. And the thing is, it would have been very easy for him to not perform. That young man brought it. And like I said before, he did it against a UNLV defense that went out there with the intention. That was top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on their bucket list as far as slowing Ashton Jeanty down. And at the end of the day, they simply could not do it. This young man is a phenomenal player. And credit to him and aside from what he is doing on the football field, because in this era of the transfer portal, it's very easy, and we see it a lot. Okay, with kids leaving schools, going to get better deals for themselves, and I'm not knocking them for doing that. Genty could have gone to a bigger program from a power conference and went out there and got himself a payday. But now you look at the legacy that he is creating for himself on the Smurf turf up there in Boise. And I guarantee you, when it's all said and done, maybe not today or tomorrow. I'll throw it out there. I wouldn't be surprised if someday you might get a statue of that young man up there in Boise for what he is doing on the football field on a week to week basis. He is definitely. We all know he's going to be in the mix to win the Heisman Trophy. Like I said before, the argument for Travis Hunter, he plays every single down on both sides of the football, and he's still an impact player. But then you look at what Ashton Jeanty is doing, just running the football for Boise, and you simply can't take away from that either. So it's put like this: it's going to be very interesting to see who gets that award in a couple of weeks as college football's best player. But you look at this, and I talked about Barry Odom. He's done a phenomenal job at UNLV changing the culture there because this football program has been down on its lucks and down in the dumps, if you will, for quite some time. And then also look at what Spencer Danielson is doing at Boise. I mean, he took over mid-season for Andy Avalos, who was let go last year. He rallied the Broncos. They got to the Mountain West Championship game because the bulk of their losses came out of conference. And then from there, they won the Mountain West. Boise State was still looking to go to another direction until like these kids on this program lobbied for him. and you see the culture and you see the family atmosphere that he has brought to the Broncos program. And of course, he's living up to the Boise State standards. I mean, this goes back a couple of decades now for what Boise has been able to do, most famously under Chris Peterson. Clearly, he wasn't the only coach that has had success at Boise, and now Spencer Danielson is adding his name to that legacy as well. I'm going to say one thing. I talked to a friend of mine about this last night, and shout out to him subliminally on this one. Boise is going to the college football playoff. We all know that. Boise is going to get a first round bye. But it's bittersweet. And the reason why I say it is this is because, they get a first round bye. So they're going to be playing on a neutral field for the rest of the way. I would have loved to have seen some of these Big Ten teams, some of these ACC teams, some of these SEC teams have to make the trip west and take on Boise and these elements on their field. That is a true home field advantage. I talked about this the other day as far as like some of these teams in the NFL that are in cold weather cities that have opted and are continuing to opt for indoor stadiums. I think it takes away from that. You saw UNLV arrive the day before the Mountain West Championship game to the press conference. Some of the guys were out there shirt sleeves trying to build up to it. But, coming to it for one day as opposed to being in it all the time is a totally different thing. And I'm not saying because you're a cold weather team that you automatically win at home. You still have to go out there and execute. You still have to be good. Boise is clearly good, but that is one of the true home field advantages, in my opinion, in college football. And I will also say this. I know that Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark and ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips are definitely not thrilled to see Boise State get a first round bye because they're going to get one. And for me, like I said before the other night, and I'll say it again, tough cookies, because it amazes me with this college football playoff, just like it was with the 14 college football playoff, just like it was with the BCS. It's something that was agreed upon by the powers that be. Okay. And it's one of those things, it was kind of like a throw in with the 14 playoff. Well, Notre Dame could get there. Well, we could get multiple teams from the SEC. Well, what happens with a group of five conference champion if they get there? All of those things happened eventually, and then they complained about it. And, you have these guys that they want an automatic seat at the table for their conference champion. They're going to get it. And now they're still going to complain. You look at it right now, if you want to compare Boise State to either Arizona State or Iowa State, as far as who's the better team, or if you want to compare Boise State to either Clemson or SMU, who's going to win the ACC. I mean, you look at it, Boise's only loss this season was a 3-point loss on the road in Eugene to Oregon, who happens to be the top ranked team in the nation right now. Okay, and then they just beat UNLV twice, a darn good UNLV team. So at the end of the day, the polls like them, the committee likes them. Boise State definitely deserves a first round bye. And I'll tell you like this: right now in the playoff, Boise State would be the 4 seed according to the rankings. I'll tell you like this: if SMU loses to Clemson right tonight, Boise State I think moves up to number 3. Okay, so that's how they're looking right now. And on the flip side, clearly Boise's not going to have another game on their home field this season, but you still get the first round bye. And who's to say the winner of the opening round contest that would have to face Boise would be completely healthy come time for that quarterfinal game? A lot of things can happen. So let's see where Boise goes from here. But getting back to Brett Yormark, I know like he's probably not thrilled about this, but it would be interesting to see if he would look to lobby and add Boise State and UNLV if he wanted to add more freight to the current 16-team Big 12 just to try to, make sure that his conference, if you will, got that first round bye. But nonetheless, getting back to this game, it's truly a shame that Boise State and UNLV won't be in the same conference after next year. Boise State is going to the new Pac-12 because I feel like this has been one of the better rivalries in recent years, even though you really can't call it a rivalry since it's one-sided in favor of Boise, but still one of the better games that the Mountain West has produced consistently. And honestly, it's one of the better matchups that we've consistently seen in college football in recent years. Barry Odom is a darn good football coach. Spencer Danielson has shown in a very quick period of time that he is a darn good football coach. And the thing is this, when you are not one of the big boys at the table in the world of college football, you have to go out there and you have to recruit those kids that might have been overlooked by some of those schools. And of course, and now with the transfer portal, you have to work even harder to keep those kids in your respective program. And then getting back to Barry Odom and UNLV, look at how the season started. They were 3-0 with Matthew Sluka at quarterback. Matthew Sluka left after the whole NIL dispute. In steps Hodge Malik Williams, who some of the kids at UNLV wanted to be or felt that he deserved to be the starting quarterback to begin the season. And look at what the Rebels did as far as getting to the Mountain West Championship game. They're going to go to a bowl game. They're a 10-win team. And I guarantee you they're going to be a tough out for whomever they face in bowl season. So, again, it's just one of those things. It's unfortunate to see this contest, going by the wayside in a couple of years. Maybe at some point we see Boise State and UNLV in a conference again in the future. Who knows what happens? But nonetheless, you look at Boise, and I really like their chances in the playoff as far as, at least winning a game. Not saying it's going to happen, not saying it's not going to happen, but it's one of those things where they're, like I said, they're going to get a first round bye. How will their prospective opponent be beat up? Will they be fresh or not? And then on top of that, it's one of those where Ashton Jeanty is a very special player. And whoever they face, whichever Power Four conference school that they face, all eyes are going to be on trying to slow down Ashton Jeanty, which is easier said than done. And like I said before with Boise, they don't go away from their running game. They stick to who they are. This is a defense. They get after you. This is a team that gets after you. They're a very well coached team. And I think we saw that front and center last night in the Mountain West Championship game. It was a good opportunity for the Mountain West to showcase what they could do in a primetime spot for the nation to see. People don't follow the Mountain West. I've been talking about it for a while. Some darn good football has come out of that league for quite some time. But nonetheless, Boise State, they went back to back. They did it last year in Vegas against UNLV to win the Mountain West. They did it again last night, this time on the Smurf turf in Boise, Idaho. They're still the kings of the mountain as far as the Mountain West goes. They got some time to sit back and heal and get fresh and get ready for the college football playoff and see who their opponent is going to be in round number 2. And all I got to say is good luck stopping number 2 in a blue jersey. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time again to thank all of you fine folks out there for checking this out. And if you like what you saw and heard today, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. This is a very big weekend in the world of college football. And like I've been saying for a long time, these conference championship games are still important. You look at last night with the Mountain West game, that was a play-in game. You look at the Big 12 championship game that's taking place right now, another play-in game. The SEC championship later is going to determine a first round bye as well as some seeding for the playoff. And you could say the same thing for the Big Ten championship game tonight. And then, of course, the ACC championship game is more than likely going to be a play-in game as well. Nonetheless, there is plenty to talk about this weekend and in the coming weeks in the world of college football. And I will be talking about as much as possible. So definitely please feel free to stay tuned to this channel. Hit that alert button so you can get the latest updates for the latest content that I will have out there for from the world of college football. Ali Smith, want to thank you once again for chiming in, and I appreciate your comments on this podcast. And please do not go around and be a stranger to this channel. Definitely come back and visit. Definitely appreciate the support. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.